Many people attribute Black Christmas to be the original slasher movie, releasing in 1974 right alongside the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, both having their premieres in October of that year. But unlike Chainsaw Massacre, no sequels were ever made to the original Black Christmas, and it remains a standalone horror film, and it kind of makes it more special that way. It's one of those movies that sticks with you after watching it, leaving some of the creepiest and most disturbing thoughts about what was actually happening inside of your head. It's not terribly explicit or gory, and much of the film relies on suspense rather than kills and jump scares, but something about it feels alarmingly realistic, like it could actually happen anywhere to anyone. And on top of that, the movie is set around Christmas time, so it has that specific aesthetic and also takes a season that is usually cheerful and uplifting and completely perverts it into despair. Halloween is often praised for its suspenseful pace, the setting of a holiday season, and a stalking killer as its antagonist. And though I do prefer Halloween overall, when you watch the original Black Christmas, it's easy to see and pick up on how it inspired Halloween. From the POV shots of the killer's perspective, to the young female characters being stalked, the heavy breathing, and of course the holiday setting. The movie was directed by Bob Clark, which I just have to mention also directed A Christmas Story. You know, the one with Ralphie and him wanting the BB gun. Two wildly different Christmas classics made by the same guy. That's great.
Ho, ho, ho.
The screenwriter Roy Moore took inspiration from the urban legend The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs. There's been many interpretations of this, but essentially it's where a girl is babysitting, gets disturbing phone calls from somebody, and eventually finds out that the calls are coming from inside the house. This was directly adapted with the movie When a Stranger Calls that came out a few years later in 1979.
Leave me alone! Jill, this is Sergeant Sacker. We've traced the call. It's coming from inside the house.
And it would continue to be a common horror trope going all the way up to what I consider its perfection in Scream, the opening scene from 1996.
Why do you want to know my name?
I want to know who I'm looking at.
What did you say?
But not long after that, everybody got cell phones and nobody picks up unknown numbers anymore, so I suppose it would not have the same effect in modern day. The film centers around a group of sorority college girls during their Christmas break, and they're spending it just hanging out, having a good time, and partying. But they keep getting phone calls from some perverted creep making obscene noises at them, and I think this is one of the most disturbing parts of the movie.
Lick it, let me lick your pretty piggy cunt.
There's nothing playful or fun or whimsical about this at all. It's just straight up gross. And just who is this guy on the phone? Well, that's the thing that separates this movie from all of the other slashers. We don't really know. The killer's name is confirmed to be Billy, but that's all we have to go on. Halloween, for example, we don't know why Michael Myers kills, but we know that he's evil, and we know his backstory. Dr. Loomis gives us definitive information all about him throughout the entire film. In the Scream franchise, the killer is a mystery, but we discover who it is and what their intentions are by the end of the film. In Black Christmas, you have mystery, and you have a killer, but nothing is really solved. You never learn anything about him. You never even see his face. And you don't know why he's stalking the girls. This is the only image of Billy that we see in the movie, and it's become pretty much the most iconic shot from the film, minus the girl in the rocking chair. And I would say for this film in particular, never seeing the killer is part of what makes it work so well. It encompasses the fear of the potential that some man out there would just decide to stalk, spy on, and kill these girls. It puts you in the perspective of the victims. Billy represents this entity that at any time, anywhere, could happen. There's no clues to go on, and there's no deeper connection that we're aware of. Billy is not necessarily some mastermind, nor is he some supernatural threat. He's just the idea that somebody out there could be wishing you harm and would have the sadistic intent to act upon it. We got characters like John Saxon, who plays a police officer here, just as he does in Nightmare on Elm Street, essentially playing the same kind of archetype, and he's stern and thorough in his investigation, doing his best to help, but ultimately, because there's not much to go on, he is left clueless for most of the film. Now, when you hear this get considered to be a slasher movie, you might expect a high body count, but the kills are pretty spaced out throughout the movie, and it relies more on its atmosphere. There's a lot of long, lingering shots of the sorority house and the emptiness of it all. We hear the creepy breathing sounds of Billy, and we see him watching them from afar. The first kill is done early on in the movie, and it's the most iconic one, where he pops out of the closet of one of the girls and suffocates her with a plastic bag, and then just leaves her body, the bag still on her head, in a rocking chair up in the attic. Nobody knows where she went, or if she was murdered. She's just considered to be missing, and nobody thinks to just check the attic. It's pretty heartbreaking too, because we see her father come to get her, and nobody can seem to tell him where his daughter is. And we get a lot of time to hang out with the girls. The standout characters are Margot Kidder's character, Barb. She's better known as playing Lois Lane in the original Superman movies. Her character doesn't take anything that seriously, and is also always getting drunk and telling people off. And of course, the lead character is Jessica, played by Olivia Hussey, and as far as final girls go, she's pretty underappreciated, I'd say. And her story is also one of tragedy. Spoilers if you've never seen the movie, but she has a conflict with her boyfriend over the fact that she's pregnant and wants to abort the baby. It's a pretty heavy topic, especially for a movie in 1974, but it leads to a pretty heated argument between her and her boyfriend Peter, and he ends up being the top suspect of being the killer. The final act is the craziest part, where you get the classic "the killer is in the house" scene. Jessica discovering the dead bodies of her friends, and when Billy is finally revealed, or as revealed as he gets in this movie, it's just the shot of his eye peeping out through the door. But the movie somehow manages to make this one of the most terrifying shots in horror. A mysterious murderer that's already killed your friends just staring at you completely with open eyes behind the crack of a door. There is a chase scene, but you never get a good look at Billy. And then when Peter shows up, the terror and paranoia that was built up within Jessica causes her to lash out, assuming that Peter was the killer all along. But no, we leave on this haunting realization that Billy is still in the attic, hearing his breathing and knowing that Jessica had just killed an innocent man. It's bleak, it's dark, it's uncomfortable, and it goes along with the entire feeling of the film. There is no victory to be had here, there is only tragedy all around. So yeah, it's a great film to watch on Christmas. Considered in the slasher bracket, but it really stands out from a lot of the cliches, considering this was before the cliches were really established. The characters aren't just stock throwaway teens like usual, and they all have distinct personalities, and the Jessica being pregnant angle is taken very seriously, and of course far from the trope of the final girl needing to be a virgin or innocent. The conflict with her boyfriend leading to the end climax is heartbreaking for both sides involved, and there are kills, but not too many of them, and it leans more on the suspense building. Also, Billy remains a mystery even to this day. And unlike its contemporaries, there was never any kind of continuation. Black Christmas remains a standalone great horror flick. However, it was not able to escape being remade twice. And recently, I sat down and watched all 3 Black Christmas movies back to back to back so that I could make this video for you. And it breaks down kind of like this. It's like starting off with an extremely delicious gourmet burger. It's great. And then you follow it up with a side dish of some long expired potato chips that were found under a dumpster. Okay, I guess I'll power through that. And then finally, you get to have your dessert, which is literally just a piece of shit. Anyway, if you want to continue, let's discuss the Black Christmas remakes. The first Black Christmas remake is from 2006. It's directed by Glenn Morgan, whose only other directing credits are Willard from 2003. He was a second unit director on Final Destination 3, and directed a few episodes of The X-Files. The 2000s was filled with remakes of 70s and 80s films. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake had come out a few years prior, and it was a massive success, so Black Christmas was soon to follow. The cast of this movie is actually surprisingly filled with really good actors. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Michelle Trachtenberg, Katie Cassidy. They're all pretty solid in general, but unfortunately this movie makes no good use of them. Unlike the original, none of these characters are fleshed out, and they feel as generic and disposable as possible. This is mostly a problem with the script and the bizarre direction this movie took to tell its story. I guess credit to trying not to imitate the original, because all these slow, atmospheric, suspense-building moments are gone, and they're replaced with this bombastic, in-your-face shot style that feels like you're watching a music video from the 90s. It constantly shifts back and forth from the sorority girls to an insane asylum to flashbacks of Billy, with no fluidity at all in its pacing, and it can oftentimes make you feel like you're watching the movie out of order. It never lingers long enough on any one scene or character to let you get immersed or give a shit about them, and instead it just jumps from random event to random event, leaving you feeling kind of disoriented. And maybe that was the intent, but man, it did not work for me. But the biggest mistake this movie makes, in my opinion, is with its killer, or should I say, killers. Yeah, spoilers to this video as well if you haven't seen these movies, but I can't really talk around it. One thing this movie tried to do that's the complete total opposite of the original is explain and explore who Billy is as a killer. And I can respect them trying to flesh him out more and maybe give more insight into why he does what he does, but it's just so over the top. He's both abused and kept in the attic by his mom, who kills his real dad and eventually rapes him, leading to a pregnancy and him having a daughter/sister named Agnes that he then attacks and rips her eyeball out before being sent to a mental institution. Oh, and he also has a liver disease that makes his skin yellow. Though it's true, this does happen to people. I mean the yellow skin from a liver disease, not the rest of the backstory. But he ends up looking like that yellow bastard from the Sin City movie, and it's just really hard to take seriously. But this elaborate backstory, I just wonder, why did we do this much? Why do we need this much explanation? Why can't he just be a creepy pervert that kills people? I mean, I guess it's better than the Rob Zombie Halloween remake, spending half of its runtime showing us the abusive household and bullying that Michael experienced to try to explain him. It's almost as if these remakes hated the mystery of the original films. Sure, you can explore them and explain them more, but do we need to? Both original incarnations are scarier to me because there's so much that we don't know. But here, there couldn't possibly be more of an explanation. But with all of that backstory and info given, Billy still isn't really the main killer. No, instead it's his sister/daughter, Agnes, that stacks up the majority of the body count. And there is certainly a body count. Whereas the original has few but impactful kills, this movie just has kill after kill after kill, and unlike the original, there is so much gore and several eye gougings. Most of them are so ridiculous you just end up laughing, but that's kind of more so what this movie is. Even though it's not a sequel, it's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 compared to the first one. You can't recapture the pure tension and horror of the original, so instead they just go with absurdity. And on a certain level, that can work. That's why this one is the expired potato chips. It's not good, but there's a hint of flavor in there somewhere. I guess another thing unique about this movie is the whole film takes place over the course of one night instead of it being an ongoing event. It also has its climax in a hospital instead of in the sorority house. But there's no tragedy or misunderstanding here. It's just as generic as you can get, with the final girl, whose name I don't even remember, killing Agnes with a defibrillator like we've never seen that before, and then managing to toss Billy off the stairs, impaling him on a Christmas tree. It's forgettable nonsense. It's the kind of horror film designed to bring in a profit over a few weekends and then fade away as it has. I'd never seen this version before watching all three. I'd only ever seen the original, and while watching this, I did think it was pretty bad. However, Black Christmas from 2006 is a goddamn masterpiece compared to Black Christmas from 2019. Yes, it was remade again just 13 years later, this time distributed by Blumhouse, maybe to capitalize on their success of the Halloween movie from 2018, but I was truly not prepared for what a god-awful mess this movie is. This Black Christmas remake, I am not kidding, is one of the worst movies I have ever seen. Not just worst horror movies, worst movies in general. On this channel, it's a running joke about how much I dislike Halloween Resurrection and Terminator Dark Fate, but I would watch both of those movies back to back before I would ever watch this movie again. Okay, sure, movies like The Room, Birdemic, Sharknado, those are all technically worse than this, but those movies are so bad that they're enjoyable to watch. They have entertainment value. Black Christmas 2019 never reaches that point and just stays in pure garbage territory. First of all, it's not even really a remake of Black Christmas. It is a, I guess, horror movie that is set during the Christmas season, but it has absolutely nothing to do with the original. Whereas Billy is a mystery in the original film and then is massively over-explained in the first remake, Billy doesn't even exist in the 2019 version. Instead, the bad guys are men. Just men in general. Men are bad, and this movie is going to let you know every 5 minutes during the runtime. The director, Sophia Takal, specifically set out to make a feminist, female empowerment kind of movie, and I want to preface this by saying, 1, I am a straight male, so this was not made for me, and I understand that. 2, it does tackle some serious issues like sexual assault, of which I am not denying or dismissing in any way, and I think it is worth addressing these serious issues in films and stories. However, the way that it is done and the way that it is presented in this movie is done so poorly that it becomes a parody of itself and comes off more about preaching to the audience rather than telling an actual compelling story with good characters. It's perfectly fine to incorporate messages and themes into a movie, but when you forget to have an actual movie in the midst of that and deny the audience any type of nuance for interpretation, instead you're just beating the audience over the head with how you think and feel, it takes away all enjoyment from watching it and leaves you feeling like you were listening to a lecture instead of watching a movie. There are dozens of killers in this movie, all of them men, all involved in a cult, run by a man and worshiping the statue of the college founder, who was also a man. They plan to graduate and go into law and government to further suppress women. That is their actual goal. That is the plot.
Hawthorne foresaw the threat posed by women, so he took precautions in case they strayed too far out of line. Our army will venture into courtrooms, boardrooms, and the halls of Congress to set the world right. All we had to do was name the women who had stepped out of line, and these boys took care of the rest.
Also, there's magic black goo that is inside of the statue. I'm not kidding. And it can manipulate any man into awakening his true self, which is to hate women and kill them and subjugate them and assert power and authority over them. Also, the only men in the movie that are not killers are displayed to be completely incompetent and useless in dangerous situations like the police officer or the boyfriend characters. Also, I noticed all of the cult members are dressed exactly like characters from the sex cult in Eyes Wide Shut. No subtlety there either whatsoever. The main characters are still sorority girls, whose character personalities are the one that was sexually assaulted by a man once, the one who hates men, the one who yells and screams at her boyfriend because he's a stupid man, and another one who is almost assaulted by a man until the lead character rescues her. And I'm not trying to exaggerate. This is literally what the movie is all about. You will consistently hear buzzwords like misogyny, patriarchy, rape culture, and all of those things throughout its entire runtime.
Not all men have power.
Did you just not all men me?
And here's my thing. I'm not into the gender war stuff that you see everywhere. I think both men and women have unique, specific struggles in life that we deal with in different ways, and I think that we're better together than we are apart. I'm also totally open to watching movies from a female perspective and having badass female characters. In fact, the horror genre in itself has always had great female characters more than any other genre. Smart, intuitive, proactive, hardcore survivors that rise up against the horrors around them. It's what most of these movies are all about. But you know what's great about Nancy or Sydney or Sienna or Buffy? It's that they're not badass because they're a woman. They're just badass. They're written as fully fleshed out, great characters, not as talking points, or to beat you over the head with any kind of messaging. If you interpret and take messaging from them, that's great. And that's why art is amazing, because it allows each individual that watches it to take something different from it. We can experience the movie and the characters and then decide what it means for us. But when a movie is force-feeding you rhetoric nonstop throughout its entire runtime with only one real specific talking point, then it's obviously not going to resonate with many people. And even as a horror movie, it just sucks. There's no memorable kill scenes. In fact, the movie was rated PG-13 and cuts away from most of the carnage. You don't get anything explicit or gory here, and that's fine. The first movie was mostly suspense, but this movie doesn't really have suspense either. It attempts a few jump scares here and there, but that's all. There's no tension. In fact, most of the characters don't die, and they all end up fighting against the evil man cult at the end. It feels genuinely like it didn't even care or want to be a horror movie, and it especially didn't care to be a Black Christmas remake. Instead, it just used an established horror movie title to tell a completely different story. But let's go back to the original Black Christmas for a moment, where Jessica and her boyfriend are arguing about her plans to abort the child. This gives great development and agency to Jessica, who wants to pursue other things and not become a mother just yet. As well, we can understand the frustration that Paul feels. It's a domino effect that leads Jessica, who has been stalked and attacked by a man, to violently defend herself against Paul that she thinks is the killer in this moment. But he's not. It's a misunderstanding due to their reactions to the earlier arguments. If anything, this is a fantastic display of the lack of communication and differences between the genders done in an artistic, tragic way that tells a good story and doesn't have to hit you over the head with any kind of messaging in order to be a great scene. You can take so much subtext from the scene itself, but outside of that, it still works as a movie. But then in the remake, you have lines like this.
You're all insane.
No, not insane, Miss Stone. Simply men.
Anyways, the 2019 version is far away from the original, as you can imagine, and will exist within this bubble that feels like it's an online social media exchange full of buzzwords and anger rather than a film. And all I have to say is, can't we all just get along? It's Christmas after all. So what is the legacy of Black Christmas? Well, I do consider the original 1974 movie to be a standout example of a holiday horror film and an early and important piece of cinema history for its connections to the slasher genre, and it's remained a standalone for all these years without a slew of sequels. For the 2006 version, it's not good, it's forgettable, and it tries way too hard with the Billy backstory, but it does have some good kills and a solid cast that unfortunately is underutilized. And the 2019 version falls flat with the horror, with no nuance or creativity with how it explores its themes, and its only connection to the original is that it has college girls as the protagonist and takes place around Christmas. This was definitely one of the strangest triple features I've ever endured, but I've been trying to give you guys some Christmas-themed videos, so I figured why not do all three? So let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Am I being too harsh on the remakes? And do you consider the original to be an all-time classic, or do you maybe find it to be overrated, underrated? I don't know. You tell me. Let me know what you think of 1, 2, or all 3 of these movies down below. As always, thanks for watching, guys. And if you like this video, I have done some other Christmas videos so far. I reviewed Gremlins, my technical favorite Christmas movie, and I also reviewed Jack Frost, the one with the evil snowman. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I do appreciate it. Give it a thumbs up and a comment. Check the links below for the Patreon and channel memberships if you want to support on a deeper level. Other than that, I hope you have a wonderful day, and Merry Christmas.
You fucking creep!